Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction. Hope.
Hello, welcome to a special episode of Recovery Lab. I am Brynn Knox.
I'm Daniel Anderson.
And we are talking to Laurie MacDougall tonight. I found out about Laurie because I currently work for a grant called the CETA Horizons grant. We're based out of UMC, and one thing that they were doing at the beginning was looking for, resources for not only, the addict or the alcoholic, but also the families. And so that's when we touched base with an organization called Allies in Recovery. Right. And Laurie, I would love for you to tell us more about that and get to know more about you and Allies in Recovery over the next few minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, that sounds good. So Allies in Recovery is it's a website, and it's for families that have a loved one with substance use disorder.
Okay.
It's founded, the foundation of Allies in Recovery is it's a program called Community Reinforcement and Family Training. So CRAFT,
okay,
which is the only evidence-based, and I don't like to throw that word out there that much, but it is the only evidence-based methodology for families that are impacted by addiction and someone who's living with substance use disorder. And it's based in well-founded, well-studied, basic psychological principles on how you can interact and communicate with your loved one and create an environment where they're more likely to progress forward, move closer to recovery. As I'm sure many family members out there know, how frustrating, how difficult it is.
Devastating.
It's crippling. It's
right.
Paralyzing.
I mean, let's throw these nice words out there. Let's be honest about what this does to families.
I can throw some pretty nasty words out there myself. Yeah, it is. It's devastating. But I will tell you this. In your opening, you talk about the antidote for addiction as being hope. And right. That is the one thing that CRAFT and Allies in Recovery gave to me as a mom who was struggling with her son's opioid addiction.
Sure.
Tell us more about that, because I love when people are in this line of work that have lived experience, and I would love to hear from a mom what your journey's been like.
Okay. Well, it's been long.
Yeah.
And
sure.
We can kind of start at the beginning. I mean, I will say that
we have as long as we need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay.
You're good, right?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm good. I'm here till 10 o'clock if we need to be.
Okay. This is a good thing.
Yes.
I'll go till 8.
Okay. So, my son did always dabble in with substances, but pot in particular. Pot was his big, always. I want to say now I know. I didn't know back then, but it was around 11 was when he started smoking pot. And I believe it was, he had a really good friend who had older brothers. Right. And so he was around it. And I'm not blaming them because that's not it.
It's so common.
It's not it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's not it. And he did struggle with mental health conditions. I mean, he was absolutely bipolar from the time he was really, really young. So that piece was already there.
Right.
How did you know that from such a young age?
Oh, looking back now, I could have predicted it.
Yeah.
I could have predicted it because he just cried constantly, and I had like a direct line to the pediatrician, right, where it was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help him. And he was always underweight. He was, just a whirlwind of energy. And then, he was always very good in school, and he was brilliant. I mean, he was a really smart kid, but he wasn't doing anything when he was in school. And I know now, looking back, this was depression. This was anxiety. This was depression.
Sure.
This was bipolar. But that's really how it started. And as a mom, you think, we're going through a phase here.
Right. Yeah, he'll grow out of it.
Right. He'll grow out of it. I tried substances, pot,
Right.
alcohol, right? When I was a teenager. I wasn't 11, but I was much older. But
Sure.
I was fine, and my husband was fine. So why wouldn't he be fine? But there were a lot of things that I didn't take into account, like both of our families. Both my husband and I have plenty of people in the family that have problems with substances. So why wouldn't I, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't
Right.
someone in my family have it?
I was wondering if you had it anywhere in your family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And mental illness. On both sides. Both sides had mental illness. And but it wasn't.
Sounds like my kind of family reunion
Right.
there.
Yeah. But it wasn't until I knew we had a real problem, right?
When was that? When was that?
Well, I would say he was in college,
Mm-hmm.
and he had moved from one school to another. He got into the second school, and I picked him up for his Christmas holiday to come home, and he said to me, I'm thinking I might join the military
Okay.
because they might pay for my schooling. And I was like, what? Since when did you care
Right.
who pays for your schooling?
Right.
And then it came out that he had only passed 2 of his classes. He dropped out of 1 of his classes. And then it started to come out that there was an awful lot of partying. He started talking about the roommate. And so his father and I had said, okay, that's it. You're going to stay home. We're not paying college tuition so that you can go and party.
Right.
You can go to a community college. You can stay here with us. And so that's what we did. And he was at home, incredibly athletic person, right? He's lifting weights with his dad. He was playing hockey in like a town team, and he
Super
was
active.
really active. And were incredibly involved in the community. We owned a bagel shop that everybody in town came to this bagel shop. I was a hockey coach for a girls' hockey team. My husband was
Awesome.
my husband was the goalie coach for the girls' team, and I was a teacher, high school math teacher, and so we were really embedded in the community. And and my husband owned an engineering company, and my son was working for him at the engineering company, and we went out to the Christmas party for that company, and he was also seeing a counselor, and he was prescribed benzos. He was prescribed Xanax.
Okay.
Okay, so that night he missed his dose. We went to the Christmas party. He came because he was also working part-time for my husband. He had a couple of drinks.
At the bagel place?
Nope, this is at the engineering company.
Okay, gotcha.
He had a couple of drinks, and we didn't think anything of it. And then apparently he took the Xanax because he had missed the dose. He took an extra Xanax. And then Saturday was the next morning, and I woke up and had to let the dog out. And when I went to let the dog out, I heard this unbelievable noise. And it sounded like a seal, and the whole house shook. And I was like, what the heck was that, right? And let the dog out, brought the dog back in, and I heard it again when I was shutting the door. And I thought it was my husband maybe having a heart attack. And so I ran to the top of the stairs, and when I got to the top of the stairs, I realized it wasn't coming from my room. It was coming from my son's room, and I knew, oh, this is not going to be good. And I'm going to cry.
It's okay.
And sure enough, he was overdosed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was,
oh my gosh.
yeah, it was bad. And he ended up being put on life support. He was on life support for about 4 days. And that's when the word heroin started getting thrown around, was at the hospital. And that's when it was like, okay, we're in for some trouble. We've got a long route.
Yeah, and up until this time, we thought it was alcohol and pot, and then the prescribed Xanax.
Yeah, and I didn't think he was misusing the Xanax either. But mixing the Xanax, the alcohol,
Right.
and then using he was snorting heroin at the time, and so it was
Can't
and
imagine.
yeah, it was not good. It was and that was the first time I heard heroin.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? The other thing is I didn't know heroin. Like, where the heck did he get heroin?
Right.
Right? Like,
Only homeless people do heroin
oh,
or something.
it was not around anymore.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, where was this coming from? And that's when my journey started with, I got to get educated. I got to figure out. And all I knew about heroin was getting off of it's got to be really bad.
Yeah, it's
I
brutal.
knew from the movies.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You take someone and you put them in a hotel and you lock them in the room for 6 days and then they come out and they're all good, right? That was my perception, and I was like, how the heck are we going to do this? And yeah, from there it was a really long journey for us. I mean, immediately
What were the first few things you learned?
first few things I learned. Oof. That's a tough one because I will tell you this. I was so traumatized by it because I also found him.
Yeah.
And I was so traumatized by it that for the first 6 months we talked about being paralyzed. I was paralyzed.
Sure.
I couldn't do anything. I could not get off the couch. And I can't even explain it. It's not even really a deep depression. It's more like a numbness. And it's more like I can't move. I can't do anything. And I remember my husband saying to me, when are you going to get up off the couch?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I promise if at the end of 6 months I'm not off the couch, I'll go get some professional
So
help.
did your son pass away or did he survive?
No, he survived.
Okay, but still with that, the trauma of finding him was enough to, I mean, that would be enough for anyone to do just about anything. But that was what really triggered this period of just permanent self-reflection there for a little bit. It sounds like, I mean, just kind of just a sad darkness.
Yeah, it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I can't even.
Were you numb? Were you?
Yeah. Yeah, totally numb. There were days of just crying and crying and crying. There were days of just, I can't believe that this is where we are. There were days of, what am I going to do? And we did get him, and all the while I had to pull it together to get him into treatment, to get him, right? And I remember him being in the hospital and him saying to me, when I come home, and I said, you're not coming home.
Good.
You're not coming home. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, actually, we're going to pick you up. I'm going to empty your bedroom into the car, and we're going to pick you up. And we had bought another house. And I'm like, we're putting the house on the market, and you will never step foot in that house again. And
good for you.
And I was like, you're going to treatment. Like, it might take us a while, but you're going to treatment. And he didn't fight me at all.
Good.
Yep.
What did that process look like as far as like how did you find treatment? What treatment center did you know, okay, he needs to go to this one? Because there's just so many options these days. What did your process look like with that?
That's a really great question. I don't even know. How did I find that place? I found this really great place, Life Skills down in Florida. And I think maybe the hospital helped me. Oh, my oldest daughter actually knew somebody from Boston, and was in contact with them. And they said, send him to this place. And that's how we got him in. And it took us a couple of weeks. He had overdosed on the 19th of December, and then he got released on Christmas Eve day. So on the 24th, I emptied his room out into the van. I picked him up, and I drove him to Massachusetts. We were living in Connecticut at the time, and I drove him to Massachusetts, and then we spent at least another 2 weeks waiting for him to be able to go into treatment in this place, Life Skills.
What was that 2 weeks like?
Right. That's exactly what I was
Yeah. I know exactly what you're thinking of. Yeah, really tense. It wasn't in the beginning. And I have to tell you, he's so apologetic.
Yeah.
He is I am so sorry. Well, I don't know why I'm doing this to you. And, but that lasted only so long. And then he was in withdrawal, and he was miserable. I mean, he was just, and, it built up and built up. And then by the time we got to Florida to bring him there, so, we get there, we get into the hotel, and he's not going to go in until the next day. And he was just picking fights with us the entire time. And it was like, my husband and I were like, just get him there. Just, right. Hold it together. Let him flip out. Let him do whatever. Just hold it together until we get him there. And then once we got him there, there was this whole intake time frame. And he was angry at that point. I think probably trying to think of any possibility way that he could get out of going. Of
course.
Yeah.
Right. But he also knew I was like, you're not coming home. Yeah. Right. You're just not. So your options are run away or stay here. And he's in a place where he knows nobody.
Right.
Right. And so he stayed.
When he was, up and down with his, willingness and all that kind of stuff, was there anything he said in particular that was almost kind of convincing? Like any moment where you're like, okay, maybe this is a big decision, and maybe
no, he never did that. He just got angry at us. He was just, he knew he couldn't argue with us as to whether he was going or not. That was never because he knew I was like, yeah, okay, well, yeah.
Right.
You're going. Right. And
here's a strong boundary here for you.
Yeah. It's just not, it's not an option to come back to the house, at least not right now. And so the fights were more like, I can't download my iTunes music, just but like totally like, what are you two? That kind of thing. But, and my husband and I just hung with it, went with it. Nope. Okay. Yep. Sounds hard. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get there. Bye.
And I know that your journey with him, what's it been, 8 years so far?
Yeah.
And it's had its ups and downs. So tell us about the first down.
Well, I mean, it went up and down and up and down. I mean, that may have been his first treatment stint, but that was not his last. I mean, he went like 11 different times, at least that I can remember. He was in recovery homes, in and out. He was in the patient brokering system down in Florida for a while. Just all over the place. He went to places in Connecticut. And we were up and down. I mean, the whole time it was, he'd come home. I learned a lot of things. He'd come home. I would know to set up boundaries. And then he would do something. One of my big things always was when he would come home, it was, you cannot be using opioids and living here because I love you. And it's too dangerous for us and too dangerous for you. And so if you're using opioids, where are you going to go? I got a list. You can make some phone calls. Your dad and I will support a treatment facility. We'll support a recovery home. We'll help you get to a shelter if you need that. We won't give you money or a car. We won't, if you're going to go couch surfing, that's your business. But these are the things that if you're using opioids, we love you way too much to let you just stay here. Here's where you go. And what happened was he would leave and then he would come back. And every time he came back, I would figure out what it was that he had done before that was too difficult to deal with. I would tighten down those boundaries. And I know people often are like, what? Why would you do that? But I'll just give you an example of what happened, especially the last time that he came home. The time previous to the very last time, he was at home and he would ask us to take him to these particular meetings. Now, what he doesn't know is his mother had gone to all of those meetings. So I knew who and what was there and what was going on and all of that. And so he would ask us to go to these particular meetings. And I just knew, he's going to get his drugs. Maybe not in the meeting, but he's at least meeting someone there and getting drugs and using. And so I had told him the next time that he came back, he had called me up. He was in the patient brokering system down in Florida. Called me up and he said, I'm not going to be able to do it down here, because what was happening is the broker would meet him at the recovery house that he entered, bring him his drugs, have him use, get him into the next treatment center, get the kickback, wait for him to finish treatment, and then meet him at the next recovery house with drugs.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What?
Yep. That's what was happening. And this happened with him. It happened about 3 times. And it was actually on the 3rd time he called me up and said, I'm not going to be able to do it. Guy just keeps meeting me at the recovery house, brings me my drugs, and puts me in the next treatment facility.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That happens?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there like a documentary or something about people that do that?
Well, I think there is, and I don't know. There was a guy, Tracy Chapman, I think, down in Boynton Beach. I'm pretty sure, and he was there during the whole Tracy Chapman thing. Yeah, look it up, Google it.
Yeah.
Google Tracy Chapman brokering in Florida.
If there's one surefire way to go to hell, that's probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So he called me up. And I was like, okay, I got to think about this, right? And so what I did was I tightened down those boundaries. And I told him, don't ask me to go to any meetings for the first 6 months. I'm not bringing you. If you need a meeting, you can get virtual. You can do Smart Recovery, whatever. But don't ask me, because I'm not bringing you. And there were a whole bunch of other things like you can't be behind a locked door. And this was for me.
Yeah.
Because I was the one that was going to go nuts doing stupid things. Things like, I don't know, climbing the stairs and looking underneath the door to see where his feet were in the bathroom, right? Like really, I did some really wackadoodle things.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's so relatable.
That's you're not out of the norm for that. I mean, people, this is a family disease. It ravages families. So for you to be activated and try to do everything in your power to ensure that he's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not wackadoodle. It's not crazy. You're a mom that cares and loves your son.
Right.
Period.
Right.
There's no shame. no shame in that.
Well, thank you for that, because
No shame.
because I don't hear that very frequently. But yeah, that's where I was. I mean, I was in a really bad spot myself. I mean, there were actually times that I drove down. I live in this next to this town, this city, New Bedford, Mass, and it's a tough place. And one night he disappeared, and I was driving around New Bedford, man, looking for drug dealers with his pictures so I could tell them to stay away from my son.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have been there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like you've been in the trenches with this thing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Call the numbers on
Yeah.
the phone bill. Hey, are you my son's drug
You're
dealer?
not.
Yeah.
You're not out of
Yeah.
the norm with that. Like,
Right.
we've had lots of guests on the Recovery Lab that were, families of the affected, who did some much more wild things
Oh,
than
yeah.
that. So
I believe
Right.
it.
you're in a safe place right now. I assure you that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. So when throughout your journey did you find allies in recovery?
That's a great question. So I actually had a cousin who was going through the same thing that I had gone through. She was about a year ahead of me, and she knew how I thought, because everybody kept telling me, kick him out of your life, right? Don't let him back home, like
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And I was like, they were weaponizing my love is what my thoughts were. And my cousin said to me, have you ever heard of craft? I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, you need to Google it. It's the way we think, Laurie. You need to Google it. And so I did. And I Googled craft, and the Allies in Recovery website was the first thing that came up.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading, started looking at, there's modules on there, these videos and
Right,
activities. I started reading through it. I started looking at these videos and doing the activities, and instantly was like, this is it. This is it. I found it. And I started implementing some of the communication skills right off the bat, and immediately saw a total different response from my son. So like everything I was doing before was isolating him and pushing him farther and farther away. He was lying more and more and hiding things more and more. I changed and started listening to him and not blaming him for my anxiety, and telling him that it wasn't his responsibility to make me feel better.
Right.
And I started really listening to him, like listening not to respond,
Right.
but to get quiet.
It sounds simple, but when you really think about it, that's a fundamental shift in how we listen. So go on. I love these examples of how we can relate to.
But you're right. It is a fundamental shift, and it's such a big shift for family members because we feel we're so scared. I was traumatized. I saw him basically dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so I always felt like it needs an immediate response. I need to do something right away. I need to demand. I need to force, I came up with these really incredible ideas that I'm a former high school math teacher. I solve problems for a living.
Right,
That's
right.
what I do. And I had come up with all these ideas. I know. Here's another meeting story for you. I'll find AANA meetings that meet in the same area as Al-Anon meetings.
There you go.
We can go together. Yeah, 26-year-old son wants to go with his mother to meetings, right? Like, why isn't that a great idea?
Right.
But it,
You should have like a two-way mirror too, like so you can see, like make sure
there
your
he
kid's
is.
in there.
There he is.
That's my boy.
Yeah, that's Hi.
Hi, honey.
Yeah,
Mommy loves you.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine? Right, this
Yeah,
poor
yeah.
kid. But once I found that craft and I found Allies in Recovery and I started implementing these things, I started to see it. I started to back off of that, and I need to build on my relationship with him. I need to start to understand where he's coming from.
Right.
I need to meet him where he's at and stop trying to force him to do what I think he should do.
Sure.
Right. And also, I mean, there's a lot more to it because there's a lot of interactive skills like rewarding positive behavior. Well, when you've got someone with addiction, all you do is focus on what they're, the
Doing
horrible
wrong,
things.
right.
Yeah. The wrong. And that's all they are.
And that's all based on our own fear of what it's going to be like if they continue to do what
Right.
they did in the past.
Right.
So we're holding them hostage to the way that they were in the
Right.
past.
Right. And
You can do no right. I know what you
Yeah.
did in the past.
right.
And you're
And-
never going to do that again.
Right. And the negative talk, right? Oh my God, can you believe what you're doing to your father?
Right.
I can't believe you're
Right.
doing this to your dad. And you know, how can you do this to me? I love you
Right.
so much. Why won't you tell me? Stop lying to me. Right? Like or I got on the proof trap. I call it the proof trap. It's like being a hamster on a hamster wheel. I'd go into his room, I'd go look and I'd find the proof. And then I'd bring it out and I'd go, see,
Right.
I know you're using. And he'd go,
Right.
no, that's not mine. I'm holding
never
it for,
ours.
I'm holding it for
Right.
a friend.
What's
Right?
this bong? I have no idea. This is marijuana. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
That was before.
Right.
I don't use it anymore. Right.
Sure.
And I'd go, oh, I better go get some more proof.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I learned, no, step back. If you think he's using, he probably is. Start trusting your mama gut.
Right.
And if he is, and then respond to that. Don't react to it. Respond to that and do it in a way that you're going to address it. You're not going to be demanding and aggressive. You're also not going to be a doormat, right? Tiptoe around
Right.
big elephant in the room. You're going to address it. And you're going to hold to some boundaries, but you're going to do it in a really calm way. And learning to, I now am much better at kind of my own emotional regulation, calming myself down, really listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Did you learn the emotional regulation, all that kind of stuff from craft?
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Even without being aware that you're actually learning that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind of built into the whole.
it is. It's key
Right.
to pulling this off. It's key. You have to learn how to emotionally regulate. And actually that's when the big shift came for me. That's when I everybody had always said to me, make sure and take care of yourself. Make sure and take care of yourself. And I used to
Right.
think, having my nails done is not going to make him stop using heroin. I mean, this is ridiculous, this self-care thing.
Yeah.
But there's
Right.
something to that.
Oh, well, now I get it.
Right.
That's the emotional regulation. That's self-care. And boy, does it stink. I don't really like doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I got to do it.
Rather get my nails done.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. And I started to realize, self-care can be pretty basic. Make sure and get enough sleep, eat, stay hydrated. Right? It doesn't have to be, go get your hair dyed.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that. That's great and all of that. But it's in that critical moment when you're getting ready to react. And I'll tell you, my key now, what helps me with that regulation is I stop myself and I ask myself, do you want to be helpful or do you want to be hurtful?
Right.
Are you going to help or are you going to hurt? And then it's like, okay, no, I want to help. I want to help.
I have to. Okay. So I'm very curious here. All right. So about a year ago, I've been going to 12-step meetings since my first meeting when I was 18, and I'm 39 now, and I'm just now coming up on 3 years sober. So that tells you a whole lot about the process of, in and out of the room. So, and in the last year, I was struggling with controlling loved ones because they're not acting right. They're not, they don't go to a meeting every day. They're not working the program like, and this is so. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, why don't you go and check out Al-Anon?" I go, and it's really, really helpful to me and dealing with my ex-wife and trying to control things. And so I did, and it's honestly fundamentally changed my life. Again, that word fundamentally, and I don't use that often, but these two instances are certainly, and this instance for sure is a good use of the word. It has taught me how to detach with love, which is something that I knew how to detach, but I didn't know how to detach with love. So I'm curious, my curiosity is piqued. Craft sounds an awful lot like Al-Anon. A lot of the principles seem to be the same. What are the similarities between Al-Anon and Craft? I'm not particularly worried about the differences. It's very easy for me to identify differences, but I think it's more difficult and more effective to identify the similarities in certain things. So how is it similar to Craft?
I love this question because I also want you to know that I actually spent, when my son went to that very first treatment center, they had been, when he left, when he was done with the program, and he was there for about 6 months, and when he left the program, they told him he needed to do 90 meetings in 90 days,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So that's about the time when I was getting off the couch and, from my own deep depression, and was like, okay, I'm going to get some professional help. Sure. But I decided I would do 90 meetings in 90 days, just like him. So I hit every Al-Anon, Nar-Anon meeting there is across the states of Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Massachusetts.
Wow.
Right? I did.
I believe you.
I did. Sometimes more than one. So I bet you I didn't do 90. I bet
every
you I did
cell in my
more.
body believes you.
Yeah, I did. And I will tell you this. Al-Anon really helped me so much, right?
Sure.
I met some of the most wonderful people. But I also learned that you need to have a good Al-Anon meeting, because there were lots of meetings that I went into, and depending on who was facilitating determined how this meeting was going to go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I found some of them could be very negative, and there was a lot of misinterpreting of the anecdotal information that was coming out of Al-Anon and Nar-Anon. So I'm just thinking of things like detach with love. And people think oftentimes that detach means, kick them out, don't have it. No. And so what I will tell you,
Emotionally detach is
right,
for me.
Or detach in the moment in the situation, from the situation, but don't detach from your loved one. Like,
right.
It doesn't. So, and believe it or not, it's very similar to what pediatricians tell you when you're raising your kids, right?
Detach with love?
Yeah, it's very much the same thing. You got a toddler throwing a temper tantrum.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Walk away and you let it happen, right? And then you swoop back in when things are going good.
You don't give it attention. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Same thing. So, the similarities, well, let me tell you this. Al-Anon and Nar-Anon tells you what you should do. Craft gives you the skills to do it.
There's the answer.
They line up perfectly with one another.
Me too.
They line up perfectly.
Yeah, because I didn't know if I had to be like Team Craft or Team Al-Anon.
Right. I was curious. I was curious
you
about
don't have
that.
You don't have to pick and choose. They line up really wonderfully with one another. And what's amazing to me is Al-Anon, I mean, you go in there and boundaries, lots of talk about boundaries.
Right.
But you start asking people in Al-Anon what boundaries are, and they don't really know what that is. They have to do an awful lot of soul searching. Well, come on over to Craft, because they'll help you to understand.
Identify the specifics of how to move forward.
Yes. Yep.
I can see that. I can see that.
So I'm telling you, I mean, I did my Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, and I think saved me, really, really saved me. And then it was other things that also pushed me to Craft, and other groups, so not Al-Anon and Nar-Anon.
Sure.
I was attending these other groups that are really in the Northeast. You don't have them down here in Mississippi, but in there they kept telling everybody to section their loved one, put their loved, section them. I don't think you have that in Mississippi. Do you have it where, so you can go to the courts and have your loved one mandated?
We can have them committed.
Yeah.
But only if you're a threat to yourself or others.
No, you can have them committed to.
Can you? If you're, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the Baker Act? Would that be what that was?
That's the Baker Act in other states. We just don't call it. In Massachusetts, we call it sectioning.
Okay.
It's a Section 35, but it's the same thing as a Baker Act. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that gets them in for a 72-hour hold, and then or
no, this is mandated treatment.
That's for treatment.
Yeah, this is treatment. And it's difficult to do. You do have to prove that they are a danger to somebody else or right, or to themselves, kind of thing. But
that was going to happen to me if I didn't go. Like, they had the attorney lined up and all that.
It happened to
stuff.
me once, and it pissed me.
Well, you know what? I did have my son committed for suicidal ideations earlier, and I never forgave myself for doing it because it didn't work out very well. And, he spent a lot of time trying to hide things from me from then on. Like, he would never now say,
right, but something was learned from him when that happened. So that was a profitable experience because he learned from it. You learned from it.
Yes.
So don't beat yourself up about that.
Well, and he and I talk about it now a lot, right?
Good.
And I apologize to him. That's all I knew at the moment.
Of
and
course.
I was doing everything I could to
you were
save
doing the best that you could, given
yeah.
what you knew and what you had in front of you.
Right. And he is no, Mom, you clearly loved me, right? Like that was the goal, right?
You didn't want me to die.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Let's be clear here, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. But I was going to these other meetings and everybody would come in. I was a facilitator and there were a whole bunch of us that were facilitators, and people would come in and they would say, I don't want to section again. I sectioned my kid 9 times and now they hate me.
Right.
Right. And then 11 times and 8 times. And they would always go, well, we know a good lawyer and you've got a section. I'm section. And I was like, no, these people are saying they don't want to do that. It's not working. Isn't this the definition of insanity?
Right.
Right. And so, I thought about it. I had found the Allies in Recovery website. I was implementing craft, and I thought, you got Al-Anon meetings, which are great. You got craft. Why don't we combine them, and we'll make another meeting? So I created a group called REST, and so I created these meetings that was a combination between the two. That it was like, okay, we're going to explore craft, and I'm going to get people to go to the Allies in Recovery website, and we're going to use that as curriculum. But it's a combination of the two because Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, this is all the stuff that they're saying, we should do. Here's how you can do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Was that a success? Is that still happening?
Yeah. Actually, the meetings are now on the website.
Okay.
Oh,
so you can access them on the website.
How
Originally,
often are those?
they're Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday
Oh,
nights.
wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
Do you facilitate all of those? Or
I
do.
do.
Do you?
I do. I also have a few other people that will
Sure.
substitute in for me and stuff. But I do. And we explore craft. We look at boundaries. It's also a support group at the same time. Lots of support.
Sounds like Al-Anon on steroids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, when someone goes to the website, because it's very easy when you go to some websites to get overwhelmed with all the options and information and different things. So specifically, if you want to go to one of these meetings and check out what this is all about, where do you go once you get on the website?
Okay, so that's a really good question. Let me start at the beginning because it's really important for the people of Mississippi to understand that this website is designed for families and friends of loved ones with substance use disorder. It is not for the family member that has or is living with SUD.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we have the grant. It's free for Mississippi residents.
Which is huge.
Right.
Absolutely huge, because actually CRAFT was originally just in the clinician's office. It was 12 weeks. Once you got your loved one into treatment, that was it. You didn't do it anymore. That's like clinical CRAFT. On the website, it's applied CRAFT.
Mm-hmm.
It's for families that are working on prevention. If you have a loved one at risk, if you have a loved one using, or if you have a loved one in recovery, because as we all know, it's not like the problems end when someone goes into
Right.
treatment.
Yeah.
Right? It's an ongoing process.
We're always problems.
All
will
of
be
us are
forever.
problems. Yeah. But it's across the continuum of care, so it's
Right.
applied CRAFT, right? You don't want to stop doing it. You want to keep doing it. And the wonderful thing about it is it really changes who you are as a person. Anyway, you become a fantastic communicator with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful...
Hidden benefits.
It's incredible, right? So that's first off. If you're a Mississippi resident, all you got to do is put your zip code in for the promotion code,
Mm-hmm.
and it's free for you,
Okay.
It's amazing.
right?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great.
So then what do once you get on there?
Yes.
First thing you should do is actually sign up for something called a human touch call, and it'll come up when you're getting registered, because a human touch call, you'll get a call with somebody, a Zoom meeting, and they will show you the website. They will show you where to go. If you're in the middle of some crisis and you need help with something specific, they will tell you exactly where to go, so that you're not spending 8 hours searching the site trying to figure out what's going to help you the most with whatever issue that you're struggling with.
So if it's like 3 a.m. and there's a mom and she's just like can't sleep because of this, can she get a human touch call then?
No, she's
Okay.
got to sign up for. So, and we need to differentiate between what's crisis and what's chronic.
Okay.
That's chronic. That's not a crisis,
Okay.
right? Crisis is like someone's bleeding out, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
but you can, let's say there is a recurring problem that you've got going on and you just don't know what to do. We're having these knockdown, drag out arguments, and I don't know what to do. Schedule a human touch call. We're going to direct you exactly where you need to go on the website to get some support immediately. That's the
Okay.
first thing. Then,
But that's not required. It's just an optional benefit.
no, nothing's required.
Okay.
Everything is you get to design the program that's going to work for you.
Perfect. I love
So-
control.
Have you heard of Al-Anon?
Well, it alleviates a whole bunch of issues for people,
Yeah.
right? The other thing is, I can even tell you where it is on the menu, but if you go to the left-hand side menu, you want to go to the learning modules. That's the first step. Go to
Okay.
the learning modules. There's 8 modules on there with videos and activities. That's where you're going to learn craft,
Okay.
right?
And start at the first one?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. It's great if you do it in order and everything, but you know what? If you're like, oh my gosh, we're arguing all the time, and you want to start in module 4, which is the communication module, you can start there.
Okay.
It's okay. So you're gonna watch these modules.
How long are they?
That's a great question. So each video is no longer than about 10 minutes,
Perfect.
right? And then you do the activity that comes along with that particular video.
What do you mean activity?
That's a good question. Okay, so we'll just kind of talk a little bit about that. So
Okay.
We've got the communication module, which is module 4. Very first video is called No Negative Talk, and it outlines what negative talk is. which, by the way, negative talk is everything that we family members are engaging in. So it's basically,
That sums it up.
yeah, basically what it's saying is be quiet and start to listen. So you watch the video, talks about no negative talk, all the different forms of it, sarcasm, being demanding, being aggressive, like all sorts of different things. And then there's the activity. So what that is a series of questions to help you to identify what is your negative talk. And the reason why you want to do this activity is you'd be surprised at what is considered negative talk. And I'll just give you an example. Me being a former high school math teacher, I love logic and statistical information, and I can spew it at you and tell you why your opioids are so bad for you, and you should stop using.
I can explain this whole thing to you.
Yeah.
Why can't you just listen?
Yeah, and there's some negative talk for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how condescending is that? I have a funny feeling my son knows more about opioids than I do.
Right.
Right? But that's the first step. Watch the video, do the activity, identify your negative talk, and then you're going to spend the next week practicing no negative talk, which is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
But that's the premise of this. So now you're going to practice that before you go on to the next video. Watch the next video, do any activities that come along with it, and practice those new skills. Practice, practice, practice. And that's the idea of these modules.
It's amazing because it seems very almost kind of clinical but free. You know what I mean? Like
it is clinical.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what craft is it's psychological principles that have been put in a protocol.
Yes.
Yep. And so that's what it is.
And it sounds like there's some work involved on your part, but it seems like the most worth it work you'll ever do.
It is.
You know?
It is. Yep. It is. And you'd be surprised if you pick something small to work on and you get these positive results within a really short period of time. That's what kept me coming back. It was like, oh, I changed my communication. I didn't yell at him, and I didn't do it. And look he's talking to me.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, I want to keep doing this.
This might actually work.
Working. Yeah. And then, so there's that, and you should be working on that. The wonderful thing too about the activities, they're called key observations, and we have, participants or members have the ability to save it. It's saved on the website. It's saved in real time, so you can go back and you can look at everything. And then as things change, you can do it again.
What do you mean?
See how things have changed. So you save your answers.
Okay.
Right?
To the activities.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You get to save your answers in the key observation. You can go back later. You can open them up. You can look at what were my answers?
Right.
Have
Where was my
things
head at
changed?
this time?
Yeah, exactly.
That is so
Yeah, and then you can do it again.
Right.
And
improve upon it.
Yeah, and improve upon it. So
that might be my favorite part. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you go to, again, on the left-hand side, the top
Sounds like
icon.
somebody knows what she's talking about.
I know exactly. I've only been there 1,000 times. But if you go to the members page and you just scroll through the members page, all of the different virtual options are on there. So those evening meetings, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, educational support groups. We have one-on-one coaching. So you can schedule a half-an-hour appointment for a family coach and get some family coaching on your specific issue and maybe how you're trying to apply craft. And
amazing.
Yep. We have a support group. We have a one-day training, a 5-hour craft immersive training.
Okay.
And so in order to get that for free, because it's typically about $250, if you do half of the modules in about a 10-day period, you get it for free.
Oh, that's pretty
wow.
And you can take it twice. That particular training is also designed around the participants. So you come in and you raise whatever issues you want to talk about. Like, I'm struggling with boundaries. Can we cover boundaries today? And that's what you cover that day. There are skills groups on Mondays and Thursdays. Drop in skills groups on Mondays and Thursdays.
What time?
So everything's Eastern times, but I think you're an hour behind us. So Mondays and Thursdays would be 11 to 12:30.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think, is there anything else? There are other things on there. Then, okay, so that's all the human human interaction. You're going to have human interaction in those. It's all virtual.
That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Right. You get a lot of that human support. You get to talk to somebody about it. Right. And then if you go to the top menu bar.
And we must, I must say this, because when families are struggling with those that are struggling with drugs and alcohol, from what I've heard, I've never been in this particular situation with my son yet. Hopefully it never happens. But
He just said yes.
Please no.
Hey, Riley. You remember that talk we had?
Love you, son.
Love you. Also, don't fuck up. It can be an incredibly lonely place for family, for parents. Just a devastatingly stark, dark place in their life, and to have that human touch with somebody that is genuinely has been there themselves, more than likely, and they have walked through it, maybe crawled through it at times, but they're now willing to talk with you and share that light with you. Having that aspect to a family member that's really struggling and feels completely shut off from the rest of the world. They can't go to church and say, hey, my son, blah, blah, blah. They could probably, but they choose not to because fear of
stigma.
Exactly. So to have that human touch is unbelievably, we can't underscore that. I mean, that's huge. So
it is. It is. It totally is. And I'm glad you bring that up, because this is what I see in those evening groups a lot. Right. I see a lot of family members will come into those groups to start off. Right. And first off, they come in, they're virtual, and they come in and their screens are off. They're petrified of letting the screen down. But the wonderful thing about having a virtual group is your neighbors have no idea that you're sitting in there.
Right. Yeah.
You can make your dinner and sit in the group.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You're not in traffic. There's a whole bunch of things. But the other thing is, and oftentimes I see this, families come in and they are so beaten down and feel so guilty. And, the words like one of the first things we do in the meeting is we talk about language, that we're always changing language. And two words that are the most stigmatizing words for family members. And believe me, families are stigmatized. We are blamed. We are shamed. And then we live vicariously through our loved ones. And we feel every sting and every bite that our loved ones go through when it comes through, comes to stigma. But
can I guess one of the words?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it enabling?
Oh God, I hate it. And like take a knife and just stab me in the stomach with it. Yeah. Can you guess the second one?
You're good at this. Go on.
I can't, but I can explain why I knew enabling.
Yeah.
Because when I first, and just all honesty, when I first heard about the method of craft, my first thought was, because I got the tough love and I got like cut off, which honestly worked for me, but I've recently come to learn that multiple things work and not just one thing. So what do you say to people that do like, that was my first thought, like, is this enabling? Because it seems so nice.
So I'm glad you bring that up too, because that's a really important piece. People think when they're coming into craft or Allies in Recovery and they're going to learn these craft skills, because they are compassionate, loving, and understanding, that we're all going to have a lovely flower dance and we're just going to tiptoe around and just let everybody do whatever they want to do. And that
no
is
flower
not
dance?
it. Yeah, there is not.
Oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah. But honestly, people, I hear it all the time. New families come in and they're like, I went home and I tried that communication skill and it didn't work. And I'm like, well, what do you mean it didn't work? What do you mean? I'm like, oh, did you think you were going to go home and implement a skill and your loved one was going to get on board with it all? Right? Like, and you were going to hold a lovely flower conversation? No, that is not it. What it is this. You are going to learn to be a better communicator so that you can have really challenging, difficult conversations and you don't lose control. Not your loved one. Your loved one's probably going to lose control.
Right.
Right. And I recently had a mom say to me, how can I have a conversation and convince my son to accept what I'm saying? And I smiled and said, you can't.
That's cute.
Yeah, that's adorable. But that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to
Expect
focus on being okay with us.
Right. It's how am I going to present? Am I going to be helpful or am I going to be hurtful?
Right.
It is not.
I like that.
It is not. So, and people think that it's you're either going to be demanding or you're going to be a doormat. So if you're not demanding, then you must be a doormat and you must be no, actually, we don't want you to be in your communication. It's not about being aggressive. It's also not about being passive. It's about being assertive. And what does assertive?
And firm.
Assertive, right, exactly. Assertive and bringing my own values to the table. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with that. And that's just not going to happen here because these are my needs.
You're so good at explaining this whole thing. And so the things that you're saying are really like sinking in with me to questions like that I really had. Like, because I was confused about it, and it makes so much sense, and it just seems like a family member will get so much more peace with this method, no matter what the circumstance. Like
exactly,
Yeah,
and it takes a while, right? It takes a while because the other thing to remember, and the other thing to remember is that we do something called a functional analysis. In a functional analysis, you do 2 of them with any kind of challenging behavior that your loved one is exhibiting. You want to do a functional analysis so that you can understand it, right? So you understand what the internal triggers are for that person, meaning their thoughts and their feelings. Understand what's going on in the environment that triggers people to behave a particular way. Then you understand the behavior. Then you need to understand the positive consequences to the person exhibiting the behavior and the negative consequences. But what's interesting is the reason why you want to do this with your loved one is because it helps you to understand that they're not doing this to you. This is not about doing something to hurt you. It's not. In fact, in the majority of the time, it's to protect themselves. It's to keep from hurting you because they're so afraid of hurting you.
Right.
Right.
I need these drugs in order to not be an asshole. I need these drugs to be okay. I need these drugs and alcohol.
Anxiety.
I have anxiety.
I'm depressed.
Drugs and alcohol are a solution until they are not.
Right. And doing this functional analysis allows family members to get a much better look at it. Yeah, we can do the internal triggers and people will come out with things like, because he's trying to manipulate me. Okay, yeah, he probably is. Why is he trying to manipulate you? Come on.
He wants to ensure that he can drink and use to get that medicine that he needs to feel okay.
Right. And then
has nothing to do
nothing to do with me, really. Right. It really doesn't, other than trying to protect me, maybe.
Sure.
Right. And I mean, I ask the group this question all the time. Okay, everybody, I want everybody in here. If you are using heroin for 3 years now, 3 years, I don't care if you're 25, I don't care if you're 60, I don't care if you're 90, and your mother comes to you and says, are you using heroin? What would you say? I haven't yet to find a parent that would say,
Yeah. You know what?
I do.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. I have been shooting heroin, yes, for the last 3 years.
And then I ask the parents, Why? Why would you lie to your mother? Why would you lie?
Right.
Because I don't want to hurt her. Okay.
There it is.
There it is.
Right.
There it is. So this functional analysis allows you to understand it a little bit better, to understand why the individual behaves the way they behave. Then there's the other side of it. So now there's the positive consequences of the behavior. Let's say using, right?
Right.
Now they go and they use this substance. There's positive consequences. Anxiety goes away. My depression goes away. I feel normal. Let's talk about the negative consequences. What's interesting about that is we can list a whole bunch of negative consequences, but a lot of the time I get negative consequences that the family member thinks the loved one is experiencing. But when you look at it, the loved one that's not a negative they're not. So, for example, oh my God, stop smoking pot. It's destroying your life. It's making you lazy. Duh. And your loved one's like, what the heck are you talking about? Helps me chill out.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I can
and
sleep.
It's like,
I can relax.
Right. So then you've got the family member going, they're in denial. I'm like, they're not in denial. It's working for them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's,
Exactly.
They're not into it's working for them.
Right. It
They're
works
chilling
until
out.
it doesn't.
Right. Exactly. But when it's a problem, they know it. And
Right.
then they might lie to you
Right.
so they're never really in denial. They know when it's a problem for them. They just don't want
Absolutely.
you to know that
Right.
it's a problem for them.
Yeah.
Because you're not a safe space right now to share that with, right? Okay, so there's that. And then we do a functional analysis on the family member and their response to their loved one's behavior.
Okay.
So let's say they're asking for $40 for gas money, but mom knows, I don't know where that $40 is really going.
Right.
But
$40
I
is an
do.
awful lot of gas.
yeah, it's an awful
I
lot
know
of
exactly where it's
Yeah,
going.
I do too. I
That's
hear the
some
word-
great meth right
hear,
there.
But yeah, I hear 40. I go, oh God, right? $40. I know where this is going. But often,
50 cents in the gas tank and the rest is
yeah, that's right. You
Yeah.
have no idea.
That way I'm not lying. That way I'm not lying. It was for gas.
That's right.
I
That's right.
put gas in. I also spent $39.50 on dope.
Yeah. Well, here.
But I didn't lie.
Well,
so I
here
feel
we
okay.
go. Well, here we go. I'm glad you bring that up because let me tell you what the family members, what I'm thinking before I give them the $40, even though I know that $40 is probably going into the gas tank or probably going into their arm or,
Right.
Okay. So let me tell you what my internal triggers are and why I give that $40. You know, maybe he is really going to use it for gas money and not for drugs. Or, you know, I think I want him to know that I trust him. You know, I get to be the hero.
Yeah, there's a bit of that.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe he'll put some of it in the gas tank, some of it on drugs, and that way I get to control how much he's using.
Right.
How about this? Well, at least if I give her $40, she doesn't have to engage in sex work in order to get her money.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's a hard pill to swallow, but it happens, I'm sure.
but this is the whole thing is
Right.
I need to identify what my internal triggers, what are my thoughts and feelings?
Yeah.
Why do I, give the $40? This is why. These are some pretty powerful things for a family member, right?
Absolutely.
To be grappling with in our own minds. We're being traumatized too with having to make that decision.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's also the environmental triggers for us. He's pressuring me. He's called me at work. My boss is looking at me. I might lose my job. I mean, there's all these pressures going on around me to go ahead and just give him the $40 and let it end. And then there's positive consequences afterwards for my behavior for giving the $40. I do feel like the hero. Hey guys, my son was wicked affectionate when he was 5.
Yeah.
He was, and I felt
Right,
really loved, right? It was the only time that he was, love you, Mom, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a great feeling. And then the negative consequences, if you look at the negative consequences, it's all of those positive consequences to me were short term. They were the quick fix.
Right.
Yeah.
I got my $40. I gave him the $40. I'm relieved of all those triggers like that, just like my loved one was relieved of their triggers like that. And then I'm left with long-term consequences. I'm resentful. I'm angry.
That's what that brings me to my next question. Do you ever just have, and I'm asking this from a place of pure curiosity because I haven't been in the situation myself.
He's asking for a friend.
Right. Do you ever have days where your thought process is, you little shit, I put in so much work into ensuring that I'm okay and you're okay, and you suck. I hate this. Why can't my life just be normal? Why do I have to put in so much work because this asshole acts a fool all the time? Do you ever get resentful towards your loved one for being an alcoholic and addict and just kind of just daydreaming like, wow, what could I be doing right now if I wasn't completely immersed in working on stuff that's surrounding this kid? How do you deal with that? Do you come across those thoughts and feelings of, you suck, just why can't you just be normal? Does that ever cross your brain? All I hear you talking about is all of this work that you've put into everything that is surrounding your loved one. Do you ever just struggle with like, I don't want to put any more work in. I'm tired. I just want to live a normal life.
Okay.
How do you handle that?
Okay, wait a minute. So there's a whole bunch here.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Okay. So let's talk about this. Yeah, I got pity parties. I love me some pity parties. I do. I believe in them. I think everybody should have them. I do. Put on some warm fuzzy socks. Get yourself some Ben and Jerry's. Hop in and watch a really sad movie and do some crying. Bring some tissues, but don't stay there.
Right.
Don't stay there. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have. I've gotten in the car.
Right.
I'm trying not to swear.
We're not regulated by the FCC.
Oh,
you can say whatever we want.
Well,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah. She
All
said
right.
no. But yeah,
Organization.
yeah, I do. Yeah, like, oh, he's so selfish, and and all of that
Right,
kind
yeah.
of stuff. But I'm also going to tell you on the flip side of it all,
Please.
I have so much gratitude that I had the opportunity to go through this, that my son's addiction changed me, right? That I got to be a better person. And so all the work that I put in, yeah, it's for him, but it's also for me.
100%.
It's also for me.
And look at all the good you're doing and all of the beautiful lives that you're changing as a result of his addiction.
Yeah, and the people that I've met, right? The fact that, I meet so many people in recovery, so many people that have struggled through life, and I would never have met them. I wouldn't know them. And boy, oh boy, am I blessed. Am I a blessed person to now appreciate probably the most vulnerable population that's out there.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think, I always did see addiction as an illness. Like, I never really looked at people and thought, that people were doing that on purpose or whatever, because I know that just doesn't make sense. Like, why would anybody want to do that? Right.
I'm going to ruin my
that's-
life just because I don't like you.
Right.
Yeah,
I always believed that there was something else, but now I deep within my soul really believe that people were stuck in the perfect storm, whether it's biological factors, with mental illness, with trauma, with, a predisposition, and then being exposed to a particular substance, or, to me, I can't punish people because of that. I can't. And so, yeah, I'm resentful. I'm resentful every once in a while.
Sure.
But I'm also on the flip side of it. I can't tell you, like, I never would have been here if it wasn't for that. And I was a high school math teacher. I love teaching. I love math. You have no idea how much. I will wear a clown outfit. I will squeak my nose if I can get you to do a math problem, right? I love it. But that teaching experience is what I have now brought to the table for training families in helping them with craft. And just recently, 2 weekends ago, I saw a girlfriend who kind of was on my journey with me, with my son. She was the first person that I called, actually, when he overdosed that first time. And she said to me, you're a great teacher, but this is what you learned to teach so that you could do this. This is what your purpose and what you were intended to do. And it's right. It's true. It is. So yeah, I'm resentful, but also no. And I think a part of the reason why I'm so grateful is because I did find craft, and it did shift my life and did change who I am. And it allowed me to see all the beautiful things that I have in my life. It allowed me, this is one of the interactive things, the skills that I learned was that to turn and focus on the positive things that my son is doing. But that also helped remind me that, I'm freaking blessed. I don't just have a son with addiction. I'm lucky because so many people have lost their loved one, and I still have my loved one. I have an incredible husband, and I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have incredible friends. I continue to meet all these strong, incredible individuals in my life. No, this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is just my life. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I'm blessed.
I love that so much. And I'm so proud of you. I'm genuinely proud of you, because you could have stayed on the couch and you could have made all these other decisions, and you've been through so much, and you just are a warrior. You're going to make me cry. But it's true. And Thank you. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so grateful to get to know you, and that you're out there, just for these families and championing them. And oh my God, I'm so emotional. But it's amazing. It's amazing. And I don't know, I'm so grateful to get to know you. And I'm very proud of you.
Well, this is the whole thing. We need to get as many families as we can.
Absolutely.
To the website, right? I really, I want to get connected to people. I want to help people. And I want families to know that there's help out there. There's so much help. It can really shift and change your life, whether your loved one goes into long-term recovery or not. Right? Whether they're actually using substances or not, whether they have recurrences or not, ultimately the goal, of course, is we want people in recovery. We want people living the best lives that they can live. But for family members, come on.
Yes.
Come on, we got to stick together. We got to be together.
And it's alliesinrecovery.net.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just got to enter their zip code.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna post that on probably the Facebook page. We'll put that on the Recovery Lab website under Recovery Resources. I'll add a link there as well. How else can people get in touch with you?
That's a good question. You can email me at lcmac11@comcast.net. Reach out anytime. I get all sorts of emails.
Say that one more time for us.
It's lcmac11@comcast.net.
Awesome. Well, Laurie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Sea to Horizons Project for, funding this for Mississippians. We really want to just provide as many resources as we can for people in substance use, and then the families that are affected by it as well. And so grateful for you. I'm grateful for Allies in Recovery. And Daniel, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank y'all for coming
above
here.
and beyond.
Yeah,
for,
no worries.
Anyone. So thank you.
This is really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
And thank you. Thanks to both of you for having me and giving me this space and time to talk about everything. To talk about my story, to talk about everything. So this was great.
You're an incredible person, and I'm grateful that you came in today. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And we'll see you. I think we'll see you on Sunday with our regularly scheduled Recovery Lab podcast. All right, guys, y'all take care.